Hey, what's up? It's Jim, and today I'm going to talk about the best films of 2013. I usually work on these lists pretty hard just because I know how top 10 lists can kind of define someone. I'm not as into them as I usually am. I don't know if I believe in all the rankings. They're kind of like where about they should be. I was going to number them. When anyone doesn't, it's like, why don't you just do it? So I guess I'm going to, but I'm kind of like apprehensive about it. I definitely believe in where I place them, but I'm not as focused on it. As I've been doing reviews for a while, I don't have as much faith in doing it, but one of the reasons I like doing reviews and being a critic, I think, is because I like to tell people about a good movie and hopefully get people to see a good movie. Regardless of if it's a big movie or a small movie, just getting people to experience a good film, I still think is really an amazing thing. I still like to talk about theory and what's going on in the film and talk about the issues of the film, and that's pretty much where my heart really lies, but there's still a part of me that likes to tell people about an old 40s film or a film that I just think is really cool and want to talk about and hopefully get someone to think about again. So I guess these lists are more about that, and that's kind of what's important. These are actually what I think of as the best films. There are a lot of runners-up, and actually the 10th spot was a hard one to do, but there were a lot of great films this year. You had like Blue Caprice, The Pirate Bay Away from Keyboard. I actually like To the Wonder. I really love Pacific Rim. There's a lot of great films every year, and there are a lot of great films this year. And without further ado, I guess I'll do my top 10. These are the films that I considered to be some of the best films of 2013. Number 10 is A Hijacking. A Danish cargo ship which is hijacked by Somali pirates, and then the film is half about what's going on the boat, going with the cook, who has kind of become the de facto kind of leader of the group, or at least the one the Somali pirates will talk to, and will let talk to the Danish shipping company. And the other half of the film takes place in the Danish shipping company with the CEO, who's like a tough negotiator, and he thinks he is the one who should be negotiating with these Somali pirates, even though he is told that's really not a good idea. They should bring in someone special for that, but he insists to do it because he is a very good negotiator, at least on the corporate level, and it goes on for months and months and months. And the film is really about the negotiation. It's kind of withholding certain information to kind of show you how kind of drawn out these negotiations can really be between, you know, a corporation and Somali pirates, and especially one that doesn't know what they're doing. And it's colder and psychological and like a thriller, but it's like almost emotionless, but it's very emotional at the same time, very straightforward. Like a traditional thriller is like very much playing for your emotions and you know exactly what it's going to do. There's certain points where I don't know exactly what it's going to do. Number 9, Leviathan, which is a non-narrative avant-garde documentary. It takes place on a fishing ship, and the directors decided to put various cameras throughout the ship, like kind of hidden and smaller waterproof cameras, so they can get weirder exact views of the ship. So what you're looking at isn't automatically recognizable to the eye. This film is such a breath of fresh air with documentary. This is the kind of thing I want documentary to be. I want documentary to be weird. I want documentary to be different. I don't want to see the same fucking documentary every time. And like this film and like The Arbor a couple years ago have really come out and questioned what is going on in this dead stagnant genre. And Leviathan comes out, and Leviathan is beautiful and wonderful, and you don't exactly understand what to think of it, because Leviathan isn't telling you how to feel about these fishermen or the environment with these fishermen. It's very matter-of-fact at the way it filmed and documented their subject matter, but it's very artistically the way it was shot that you can take away different things from those images and that you're left with just images. I mean, it's literally like stripping away everything from a documentary and giving you just filmmaking. Number 8, Barbarian Sound Studio. A British sound engineer named Gilderoy, played by Toby Jones, who has flown to Italy to work on a film called The Equestrian Vortex, which he believes to be a film about horses because it says equestrian. The film starts when he arrives at the studio and he finds out it's an Italian horror film, or a giallo. This film takes place during the 70s, and he's kind of horrified at first because he doesn't really know much about horror films. Gilderoy, Toby Jones's character, is slowly getting into this world of both Italy, a language he doesn't understand, and a film world he doesn't understand. He's used to more working on horse documentaries. This is a horror film where it has the ambiance of a horror film. I haven't seen a horror film where ambiance is so important and it's used so well and effectively, and I don't think you'd have such a great film without it. You slowly see what's going on. It's a very slow movie, but it's very rewarding. And the 7th film, The World's End. Gary King, played by Simon Pegg, who wants to get his friends back together and recreate their legendary pub crawl, which they were never really successful at. That happened in 1990, and he wants to go back with his friends to his old village where they all grew up to do the pub crawl and do 12 pubs in one night, 12 pints, kind of relive his glory days. And he gets them all back together. His life hasn't gone so well. He's in AA. He's still wearing the same crap he wore from 1990. And they slowly realize that everyone in their town has been replaced by robots. They're trying to defeat these robots while at the same time Gary is trying to keep them going on this legendary pub crawl to finish before the night is over. Edgar Wright films, I think, are always kind of the full package. And especially this one, because it's like you have a good time, there's like an emotional weight to it, you laugh, there's funniness, there's drama. What the best part of Hollywood filmmaking and blockbuster filmmaking has to offer. You're advertising one thing, but you're wrapping all these other things up in this film. Having all that wrapped up into one, and his quick cutting and moving all over the place. I mean, Edgar Wright, there's like a precision to him, but there's such a planned out precision that I don't see from comedy directors. And he's just a smart director. And number 6, Upstream Color. A girl, Chris, who has a successful job in a house until she is abducted one night and given brainworm into her system, and she's kind of put in a trance and very controllable and susceptible to instruction, and she is instructed to do all sorts of bizarre things, and then has her bank accounts completely emptied and basically bankrupts her and destroys her and makes her his slave for several days. When she comes out of this weird slave haze in which she is also kind of operated on and kind of mentally joined with a pig, and then she meets Jeff, who's played by the director Shane Carruth. They kind of have an unnatural, bizarre attraction to one another, and he also had a similar situation happen to him, and he is also prey to these weird mind control worms, and they have a weird connection to one another where they suddenly kind of start to experience one another's memories, and they fall in love rather quickly and try to kind of figure out what happened to them in this weird haze of a bizarre, crazed, weird, strange science fiction movie. This film kind of has a mad scientist way about it because it's so crazy. This is a very unique kind of science fiction film. This reminds me of Rod Serling or The X-Files. Well-crafted, smartly written science fiction. Now, starting things off at the top 5 is Inside Llewyn Davis. The titular character, Llewyn Davis, played by Oscar Isaac, and about a week of his life in Greenwich Village in 1961 as he ventures around with a cat, goes to Chicago, comes back, plays a lot of gigs, and goes about life in his very unsuccessful bid to be a folk singer. Odd and as folksy as this film is, and even the Coen brothers' style is very kind of surreal but well-researched history, I still get very immersed in it, and I love the flow about it. I like how it captures something about the 60s, but isn't just interested in telling you about the history. It's like kind of in a folktale. I feel like this is partly the Coen brothers doing their original voice, but almost a kind of, the way it tells its story is like what a folk singer would like a movie about himself to be like lyrics to a folk song. The charm of it and the story of it and the pointlessness of it is just a fun, interesting experience. And I think with some of these films, it's more of an experience than a story. Sometimes they're both not storytellers and they are storytellers, and all that wraps up into why the Coen brothers have become such interesting auteurs. Number 4, The Wind Rises. Jiro Horikoshi, who was the designer of the Mitsubishi A5M and the Mitsubishi A6M0, which were used as fighter planes in World War II by the Japanese military. This isn't really about what those planes were used for. This is for his love of flight and how he was obsessed with making those planes and what drove him to make those planes and why it meant so much to him. He meets the love of his life named Nieko. Throughout his life, he keeps having fantasies with the Italian aircraft designer Gianni Caproni, where he tells him about life and gives him kind of philosophical musings about the creative world and why he likes to make aircrafts. It's not done in really a straightforward manner. It both feels very Japanese and very European. It feels very lyrical and episodic and leisurely all at the same time. There's no attention to detail with the dates, but it all works out perfectly, like a master filmmaker. It shows a very contemplative filmmaker, kind of an old man contemplating on his life through his storytelling. Number 3, Gravity. Sandra Bullock's character of Ryan Stone, who is in space with George Clooney's character, and who are fixing the Hubble Space Telescope and installing new things within it. And then while they're doing that, debris from a failed attempt from the Russian astronauts to destroy a satellite that are heading their way and destroy the spaceship that they're connected to while they're fixing the Hubble telescope, and leaving Sandra Bullock and George Clooney alone trying to find a way to survive in space. I was very immersed in this film. I couldn't really get out of this film. It wrapped me up like a blanket, but its intimate, small setting kind of made it, being immersed in it, even more terrifying, like arty and audience friendly at the same time. And I think Alfonso Cuarón, in his last 3 films, meaning the third Harry Potter film, Children of Men and Gravity, have this kind of sense to them where obviously they're all big budget films, and they kind of want to be big budget films. And Gravity very much is a thrill ride, wants to please you as an audience member, but also wants to be arty. It's not making any apologies about it either. It's really kind of shoving it in your face, but also doing the normal blockbuster thing where it's appealing to you at the same time. Alfonso Cuarón's really interesting with a big budget. And the last 2, I've had a really hard time deciding which one of these is number 1. So I am going to say which one is 2 and 1, but really in a lot of ways I consider both of them the best film of the year, which is a cop-out. But see, I'm like kind of trying to not do a cop-out while also copping out at the same time, but I'm still giving them 2 and 1 for whatever reason. But number 2 is Frances Ha. You're following this girl Frances, played by Greta Gerwig, who's a 27-year-old dancer who's kind of trying to find her way in life. Her best friend, who she lived with, she says they're like an old married lesbian couple who never has sex anymore. And then her friend goes off and lives with somebody else in Tribeca, and which she can't afford, and starts being more serious with her boyfriend Patch. And she kind of goes on various misadventures throughout this film. I wouldn't say it's very much structured. Even though it is very loose, it feels like very planned out and thought out and perfectly articulated. It doesn't feel as loose as like a lot of films when they're loose are. It feels very perfect in its looseness. And Greta Gerwig, it's both stylized and realistic, but it manages it both very well. And the number 1 film, as I see it, of 2013 is Her. A man named Theodore, played by Joaquin Phoenix, who has recently been divorced. In fact, he's just about to sign his divorce papers, so it's pretty recent, within the past year. And then he gets a new operating system with a voice and an intelligence behind it, which is voiced by Scarlett Johansson, and he falls in love with the operating system. And they have a relationship, both a sexual and mental relationship, that brings him in as he very much needs someone. It feels very personal, it feels very intimate. When I was watching it, I felt such a personal and intimate connection to it. And there's a real love story between him and this OS. One that I surprisingly believe in as an audience member. There's really no better way to describe it than saying a man falls in love with an operating system, which sounds kind of loopy and crazy and like a crazy cult film, but there's real emotions attached to that. And I think it says a lot about us and technology right now and how personal technology can be. This film goes into some basic human emotions like connection and loneliness. It just feels so vulnerable and how personal it is. Those were my best films of the year. I hope you enjoy these kind of compilation videos. I enjoyed this year. I did quite a lot of reviews. I think it was like 120. I think it was a decent enough year for film. I think there's some good films on here. If you haven't checked one of these films out, I definitely think you should do so, either if it is available for you now or when it becomes available for you to see it wherever you are where you are watching this video. Even though I was a little down on doing a top 10 list, I guess, I did actually spend a lot of time trying to make sure I really represented how I felt about the films of this year in this top 10 list. Really, these lists are my most favorite thing about being a critic, but in the end, I would much rather have you go out and see a really good movie and experience a really good movie, and that's one of the reasons I do like doing this. So if this list does just that, I think it did a pretty good job, and as cheesy as that ending is, it's true. So if you have seen any of the best films of 2013, you would like to talk about it, then comment below. And if you would like to leave a list of what you felt were the best films of 2013, do so below as well, and let me know how you felt about the cinematic year of our Lord 2013. Subscribe if you would like to, if you haven't already, and thank you very much for watching, and I will see you again soon.